It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. This opening line from Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities accurately describes the terrible launch and incredible gameplay that makes up SimCity, the long-awaited simulator from Maxis. It's been exactly 1 week since SimCity saw its release marred by a series of unfortunate server-related issues. It's certainly been a frustrating week as the game's always-on DRM requirement prevented many from enjoying the latest city-building simulator. While we had a pretty decent feel for the game when we played it on the test servers prior to launch, we wanted to wait until multiplayer was fully functional until we gave our final verdict. After all, SimCity is primarily a multiplayer game. Unlike SimCity games in the past, you're no longer alone. There's an all-new multiplayer element forced upon you in this one. Let's keep in mind, however, that SimCity isn't strictly multiplayer only because it is in fact possible to play alone and own multiple plots. It's even possible to play a city with inactive neighbors and still manage to construct your own great works. We've done it, but it wasn't easy. Whether you want to admit it or not, your city is not self-sustaining on its own. You need other surrounding cities if you want to accomplish your goals, whether it be for the residential, the commercial, the industrial, or the utilities. Due to the limited size constraints, it's just impossible to fit all of it into your own little plot of land. And while we understand the reasoning for smaller land masses, and increased dependency on your neighbors, there are times when the restrictions can get pretty frustrating. Again, the purpose of smaller plots is to really have a focus on what your city specializes in. Gone are the days of being a jack-of-all-trades city. Now you must choose one of the 6: mining, drilling, trading, electronics, culture, and gambling specializations, and build your city around that. While you can technically mix and match specializations, the size of your plot will severely handicap you. SimCity is a game about evolution, not necessarily expansion. Like in real life, you're forced to concede to the limitations of your surrounding resources. If New York City runs out of space, they don't just expand their borders, they build up. That's what you have to do in SimCity. As cities grew larger and their needs changed, we had to rezone areas, demolish buildings, and restructure roads to make room for upgrades. Sometimes you just have to make it fit by any means necessary. Going off the theory of evolution, SimCity will require you to adapt. Making a nice living off coal or oil? Well, I hope you have a different future in mind because these are non-renewable resources. Granted, it takes years for you to deplete your resources, but keep in mind, one day, you will run out. What then for your city? What then for your future? Sorry. Thankfully, specializations do overlap, making the transition relatively painless. Once you realize that your city's not alone, you'll begin to have fun with the game, if you manage to get nice neighbors. With strangers, this can prove somewhat challenging and can often ruin your experience. Perhaps this is a downside to multiplayer gameplay. SimCity is not multiplayer, rather it's multi-regional. The trick to the game isn't that you need other players, you only need other plots that can fill your city's needs. If you want to play alone, simply create a private region and manage all of the cities on your own. Of course, you'll still be required to connect to the internet. Gameplay-wise, SimCity is still the same complex beast we've grown to love, only this time it's presented in a more welcoming form. All of the details about your city, from the sewage to the traffic flow to the fire coverage, are presented in easy-to-understand color-coded graphs. But for as simple as these graphs are to understand, the technicalities controlling each are a complex mystery left to be discovered by the player. In fact, much of what you discover about the city's inner workings will be from your own trials and errors. There's a lack of in-game direction. SimCity just sort of throws you into a plot of land and asks you to build. There's a guide which acts as a simple tutorial, providing you with some tasks and goals, but there's no real in-game guide detailing every aspect of this complex game. There could have been a little more explanation defining what to do to maximize industry output without having to rely on the player community for information. This amount of detail is made possible by the Glassbox game engine, which in essence is the power to SimCity. Under the hood of SimCity is this supercharged engine that takes the simplest packets of information and composes them together to create the inner workings of a city. Every single element in your town, from the resources to the residents, is its own packet of information that affects the greater simulation when interacting with each other. Like a real city, everything is interconnected, One action you perform and decision you make will have an effect on another area of your city. Building an oil power plant to power your city? I hope you like pollution. It's tough decisions like this that will lead you to experiment for the best fit in your city. And it's the constant toying and tinkering that will keep you coming back to create a new city. Graphically, SimCity has never been as gorgeous. You're no longer playing God from high above. Now you can get to street view and watch your Sims live their lives. You can spend hours on the streets of your city, following individual Sims or simply capturing video or screenshots of your creation. Even something as simple as watching traffic flow in action is fun. At the time of this review, some features, such as global leaderboards, are still disabled. While that will seemingly add another layer of competitive complexity, it doesn't necessarily hinder the current gameplay. SimCity may not have been the best launch experience, but this game is clearly a marathon worth of gameplay. Take your time, play slow, and really enjoy what Maxis has created for us, because it really is a great game when given the chance. We're going to give SimCity an 8.0. Be sure to check out GameZone.com for the full review of SimCity, as well as the latest tips, tricks, news, and cheats. Thanks for watching.